All right, hello, people of YouTube land, and those that are part of the Courage Community Gaming Discord, those that follow Ted and I and Haley here on Twitch, and those that are listening to this podcast on Spotify or whatever um, audio streaming service that we are putting this up on. I am Traductus.
I'm Ted.
I'm Hayley, as mentioned previously.
And this is the Cringe Crew Gaming Movie Review Podcast, and we are finally on to Haley's picks here, which are all horror classics.
All amazing and wonderful, and the best picks. Continue.
I would say this, on paper, yes, but after watching what we just watched, I'm like, eh. Spoiler alert, I'm gonna get yelled at by a bunch of people, but we are reviewing the original 1978 John Carpenter's Halloween. I'm a little annoyed that we're doing this because I wanted to do John Carpenter in the future, so we might have to review this twice, or hopefully we do this recently where we're just like, fuck it, remember this movie, we're just gonna rank it. But oh well, at least. But that being said, yeah, Halloween made in 1978, directed and scored and co-written by John Carpenter. The other co-writer and producer is Deborah Hill, who he was dating at the time. This was released October 25th, 1978. And had a budget of $300,000 to $325,000 and made $70 million in the box office. So, just like every other horror film, hey, here's $10, make a movie. By the way, you're gonna make profit if people like it. That being said, go with cast here for background. Donald Pleasance as Dr. Sam Loomis. Donald Pleasance was actually not the first person that was going to be cast. If I remember right. There we go. Originally, it was going to be Peter Cushing, who plays General Tarkin in Star Wars. Also, Christopher Lee was approached for the role, but he turned it down. And Christopher Lee actually told John Carpenter that the biggest regret in life that he had was not taking this role. So then it ended up going to the role ended up going to Donald Pleasance. And due to casting Donald Pleasance and no other basically famous actor at the time, keyword at the time, a lot of the budget went to Donald Pleasance, so they couldn't afford, like, bigger names. That being said, we have Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. She also wasn't the first choice for the role. As a matter of fact, they had no idea who she was or her mom was until after she, auditioned for the role, and the person that they wanted to cast, which was Anne Lockhart, who is the daughter of June Lockhart from the TV series Lassie, but Lockhart had commitments to several other films, and to quote Jill Hill here, it's like, I knew casting Jamie Lee Curtis would be great publicity because of her mother from Psycho. That's why they ended up casting her after they found out about it, because apparently Jamie Lee Curtis was in like a TV series beforehand. They had no idea. When they figured out somehow that she was the daughter of Janet Leigh, the one that gets stabbed in the shower in Psycho. And they're like, oh shit, yeah, we should totally cast her. Here's the thing. Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't sure she was right for the role because she felt more akin to the other two girls in the script in the movie, as in that she was a cheerleader and a bit of a brat, smart aleck, and didn't realize that she could have like pulled off like a reserved nerdy role. Back to casting. We have might as well go for like the other people that are in this. PJ Souls as Linda Vanderclock. PJ Souls is known for this role and also her role as Riff Randolin in the movie Rock and Roll High School, which has the Ramones in it. Also we have Nancy Loomis as Annie Brackett, and I have no fucking clue who the hell. I'm trying to figure out. I don't know. Some dude plays Linda's boyfriend. But I think
100% change his name in real life to some dude.
You nailed it. That's his name. It's the actor.
spoiler: the cast besides Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis, and also Michael Myers, does not necessarily matter. We have Nick Castle as the Shape, as in Michael Myers that's masked, and then we have Tony Moran, who plays the unmasked Michael Myers at the end of the film. Fun fact, I know someone that's met them both. She said Nick Castle's actually an awesome person, and she said that Tony Moran's a fucking dickhead, and that he charges way too much money for an autograph for playing Michael Myers for 5 fucking seconds.
I mean,
So that's out there. Now, that being said, if my friend's wrong, my friend's wrong. I'm sorry, Tony Moran, but needless to say, my friend had a bad experience. And think that's all we have for casting for how this movie ended up getting made. After viewing John Carpenter's film Assault on Precinct 13 at the Milan Film Festival, independent film producer Erwin Yablans and financier Mustafa Akkad sought out Carpenter to direct a film for them about a psychotic killer that stalks babysitters. Yablans was stated that I was thinking about thinking what would make sense in the horror genre, and I wanted to make a picture that had the same impact as The Exorcist. Carpenter agreed to direct the film on contingent of having full creative control, and he was paid $10,000 for his work, including writing, directing, and scoring the film. His then girlfriend Deborah Hill began drafting the story of Halloween. Originally, it supposedly was supposed to call the Babysitter Murders, but that was debunked, and it was always supposed to be Halloween and take place on Halloween. John Carpenter actually did ask the director of a previous slasher film, Black Christmas, which was released like a few years beforehand. That director, Bob Clark, Carpenter asked him for like a couple ideas what he would do if he had a sequel for Black Christmas. However, despite taking some advice, Bob Clark actually said that Halloween is very much its own film as opposed to like a Black Christmas ripoff that's on Halloween. Obviously, this movie has had a huge impact. A lot of cases, a lot of people consider this as like the catalyst of the slasher craze. Like, granted, like there were slashers before this. Like I stated, Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was before this. Same with like Blood Feast and Psycho, which were done in the 60s. But I would say, like, I definitely agree. Like, this, for some reason, this one, a shit ton of slasher films just got made afterwards, although not many rip off this one. They rip off another film that we're going to get into, like, a little bit while, which is Friday the 13th. But we could probably see the differences in that when we get there. But that being said, I guess, plot of the film, Ted.
All right. The dude breaks out of the asylum and stabs a bunch of people, chokes a bunch of people. They all die. Everyone dies, and that's it. That's the
Halloween
gist.
in 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's the gist. It's a slasher film.
Not everyone.
I mean, just
Not
about.
everyone.
Not a
I was
pleasant
gonna say,
alive.
like, just about everyone. I mean,
You can't say everyone because there's always a final girl.
well, listen, some
How
dude
slashers
died.
work.
Some dude died, and if that's not, look, he needed to live. Some dude
No,
needed to live.
some guy needed to die, dude. He was just hindering the plot.
Well, the plot is murder everyone, and some dude died. I feel like he
God.
regressed the plot. Anyway, likes and dislikes. Stalman, where do you want to start?
Perhaps dislikes, because I just want to say this much. Okay, I understand that this is a classic. And I do, in general, like the Halloween franchise. However, I haven't seen this one in a very, very long time, and I was excited to watch this again. I'm just like, wow, this is going to be, like, really great, because John Carpenter's one of my favorite directors. Like, one of my favorite horror films of all time is, like, The Thing. And I'm just like, yeah, Halloween. The first Halloween's the best one, ain't it? And I was watching it, and I'm like, this is the best one, ain't it? And I'm like, wow, the dialogue's horseshit, but the kills are gonna be great, right? Okay, this movie's kind of dull. It's very generic and very dull. If it wasn't for, like, there's like a few positives that I do have, and I'm not saying like I hated the film, but I was rather disappointed of how dull and like shitty the dialogue and just like how boring a lot of the characters are. Oh, and also the Foley artist needs to be shot.
Oh, this wasn't that bad. Like, it wasn't great,
yeah.
but it wasn't that bad.
Oh yeah. Especially the dubbed in fucking groans and shit. And I'm not talking about like the stupid sex scenes or anything like that. I'm talking about like the dubbed in groans of like Jamie Lee Curtis like running away and shit like that. It's like, Jesus. It's mixed bad and it sounds stupid.
Hayley,
The Foley artist gets shot.
The thing is, mine kind of wrap up with my likes and my dislikes. It's not so much I have a list of both, they just kind of, I have thoughts that wrap up together. The movie's old. It's old. And that's its excuse for being bad. That is what I'll give it. It came out in the 70s. They could have done better. There have been movies that did better, but they worked with their budget. It's how it is.
Right.
I think that it's a classic. It's one of my favorite movies. It's still the best Halloween movie. Without a doubt.
If I remember, I don't know. I think 2 might give it a run for its money. I have seen that fairly recently, but
I don't know. I enjoy the older ones because while they're unrealistic, I don't even know how to describe the feeling I get from watching the older classics.
Well, it's
just better than the stupid CGI crap that they have now.
Yeah, there's practical effects, and it's a lot easier
They may not
to
be
suspend
good.
disbelief.
They may not be good, but they have a better feel to them than watching the newer stuff. Which there are newer movies that I enjoy, but I like my slasher classics.
I know for me, like, I'm going to agree with both of you to an extent. Like, I think that there's a whole lot of, like, corny to this movie. The dialogue was written by someone who's never heard real human beings interact before. Like, they do not know how people are supposed to be, and then they wrote them words. Like,
it was horrible.
But I also recognize that, like quality of the movie is not necessarily like what if somebody offered me $300,000 to make a movie, it would look like a Windows Movie Maker pile of garbage and it would last 18 fucking minutes. Like it would be shit. So for all intents and purposes, I think they did a fine job. My biggest gripe with this movie that is more of a gripe with the horror genre than it is with this movie in particular is that like there's no driving force. There's nothing that motivates the plot to happen. It's just, hey, we drove to an insane asylum and then a guy stole our car and then he decided to murder people who lived on the street he grew up on. And that was just like, there's no purpose. Nobody has the drive to stop the guy. Nobody it's just, he goes around and he kills and that's that. Like there's
Wasn't the plot for these developed in the second one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of horror films, that's usually what happens with, like, franchises. They develop the plot in the second one.
I don't know. I mean, there wasn't a plot for this one.
It's a gripe with horror more than it is with this one, but like you said, Stallman, I mean, this kind of, like, grandfathered in the slasher genre that, like... But I guess with that, sort of along the same line, Stallman, is that if I don't get a plot and I'm just getting a murder spree, like, it's fine, it can be entertaining, but this was just kind of dull in that, like, how many people do I have to lift up and choke and it takes 3 minutes for them to die and then I put them on the floor? The exciting part was the one guy getting pinned to the wall by a knife after he was already dead. And that wasn't even that exciting.
I remember that being brutal. I remember him getting stabbed, like, more than once. And I remember, like, blood dripping. But it's like, no, he gets stabbed, pinned on the wall, and Michael Myers just kind of looks at him. All, like, weird, like, which...
Are you sure you're not thinking of the identical scene in the remakes?
The look on Stone's face.
I don't like the Rob Zombie remakes, okay?
Not those remakes. I'm talking about the continuation remakes.
Oh, man.
I've seen the first one. I haven't seen the other two because I heard they were bad.
Don't.
Well, anyway, to stick with this movie and to stay on positives,
right.
One cool thing was that I think that they did a really, like, solid and subtle job at making Michael Myers, like, more than human, I guess.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Beyond
it's
just...
an unstoppable force of evil.
Yeah, beyond just the force of, like, not dying, right? Got 6 bullets, fell out of the second story, and then just walked it off, you know? Like, there's also a sense of, like... So, okay, the scene when Laurie tells the kids to get out, run down the street, and call for help, and then she sits on the floor panting and helpless because, again, plot lines are hard. He does, like, he sits up in, like, this way. He's been trained... The guy in the suit had to be training his abs for 18 years before he knew this role existed to be able to do just that sit-up. Right? Like, there's so many, like, tiny, subtle things like that just make him beyond human. He's not just a dude with a knife and a jumpsuit.
I also kind of wonder if the professional wrestler, The Undertaker, actually stole that from that movie, because that's, like, an Undertaker spot where you think he's, like, knocked out, and then he does the exact same...
It's just so quick. It's straight from, like, flat to 90. He doesn't move anything in his body except his core. Dude's built. I don't have to see his abs to know that they are ripped.
I will
say, too, that, like, I think the entertainment value was there as a positive. I mean, I think that, like...
Oh, yeah.
Even though this was corny, it was kind of silly. Like, you didn't get turned off from the movie. Like, it was still, like... Hey, there's a murderer out there. Like, it still keeps your attention. And I think that, like, for this to set off the slasher genre, I think, you kind of have to be. So, good on it.
And I think I love it because it's corny. I used to hate horror movies. What got me into them was the corny. It was the corny, crappy horror movies that realistically weren't all that scary. And then because of this movie and others that are on the list that I will not name, I fell in love with the slasher genre. Because while it's not, plot driven or anything, it's entertaining enough, and, it's kind of got its set story. So, plus murder.
Plus, when there's a shitty slasher film, they tend to be really awful, where they're just extremely amusing.
It's funny because it's bad.
There's never... That's the funny thing about slasher films. There's never really, like, this is, like, the only one I have to say that's kind of meh, it's okay. Every other one's I either see are, like, really great, or they're, like, really bad that they're great. But, I do have positives on this. The cinematography, I think, is phenomenal, especially, like, how the camera itself seems to be stalking, like, all like the teenagers. Even if Michael Myers is not even there, it's as if Michael Myers has like this omnipresence throughout the entire movie. Like, I love that. I also love John Carpenter's score for the film. Even though I did make a complaint about like the sound effect that it on the sound effects of like Jamie Lee Curtis kind of like grunting and stuff like that. I think she actually does a good job. She actually is probably the only one that actually has a somewhat fleshed out character that you actually kind of care about in this. With the exception of obviously Donald Pleasance, but Donald Pleasance can make like dirt amazing. And also like especially like the last part where like the whole chase thing with like between Michael and Laurie is like still great, and then the ending is definitely still holds up, and I have to say is still one of my favorite like endings to a slasher film or horror films in general.
Yeah, the ending was solid, and I do want to support your cinematography take. The lighting was really good. I think for a vast majority of this movie, they do a really good job like separating foreground and background. So as you said that like you're supposed to be in that position of stalking, it's like there's things in the way of what you're supposed to focus on that really makes it feel like you're hiding in the trees somewhere. Like they did a really good job at framing the camera and then lighting it appropriately so that it didn't take away from the movie. Stunned silence. Sounds like we're all out of stuff to say. Anybody got anything else?
I will say the script does show that it was made in 10 days.
That's out. Also, this is so far, and I meant to say something earlier, but if you need a spoiler alert, then it's an old movie. Just watch it. Just watch it. Get over yourself and just watch it. We don't need to give spoiler alerts for movies that came out in the 70s.
Right.
All right.
This is definitely I will say this is still definitely like kind of like a must watch if you want to get into like just slasher films in general or horror films.
Well, it's bad, but it's good because it's bad. Like it's classic. You cannot go wrong with a classic.
Yeah, it's got charm. It's got charm. All right. Well, anyway, I think that wraps us up. Good way to start off this week. The rest of this week is going to feature other ones of Hayley's picks every day, Monday to Friday. So we'll be here. Today's probably Monday by the time you're watching this, unless we film them and then
picks.
Okay, that was aggressive. Unless we like post them out of order, this will be Mondays. So we'll see you Tuesday through Friday for Hayley's very aggressively whispered the best picks. As always, you can hop in the Discord. We're probably still watching movies on Tuesdays and maybe Saturdays of the horror thing if we're not caught up, because we got a lot of movies to watch by the time we're recording this.
Yeah.
You can also catch us all on Twitch. Stallman at Traductus, Hayley at Hayley_bug18, and myself at Ted Green Eagles.
Sometimes.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't ever stream either. Not even one time.
Not even once.
No. Plus, by the time this comes out, I might have already been canceled. All right. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. We will see you here tomorrow. Adios.